Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Wardrobe provided by Bahari Bahamas. Visit shopbahari.com. FM. So I am calling this show today Health Hazard. We're going to be looking at the deteriorating conditions at the Princess Margaret. She's going to be joining me for the second half of the show. She's Dr. Sabriquet Pinder Butler. And she's going to be talking to us about conditions and what the healthcare professionals on the front line are facing as we go through this intense wave of the coronavirus pandemic. And I want to begin the show by looking at a video that went viral on social media. And this video shows patients in an area of the hospital where it's raining on the outside, but it's coming in outside. And I'm just going to go ahead and let the video play, and then we're going to speak to it. So let's roll clip number one. It's very short. So as you can see there, we cut it before you could see the face of the one patient who was facing the person's camera who shot that video. But as you can see, they were in a hallway of sorts, and the rain was coming down, and they were exposed to the elements for the most part. Now, since that video went viral, the Public Hospitals Authority put out a statement, and for the record, I did reach out to the Public Hospitals Authority to see if they could have a representative on the show today, but was advised that they are all in meetings today and wouldn't be able to be a part of the show, which I said I understood. So this is their response. PMH responds to social media posts on early morning rainstorm. The Public Hospitals Authority and the Princess Margaret Hospital are aware of photos and a video circulating of the critical care block being battered by rain during the early morning hours of July 24. The area identified in the photos and video is the triage site for the Accident and Emergency Department. All patients arriving for care at the emergency department are screened for COVID-19 as part of the hospital's prevention measures. During the rainstorm early Saturday morning, patients in the triage area were relocated from the West Porch area to the North Porch area for temporary shelter from the weather. Subsequently, those patients were relocated to the general practice clinic area in the ambulatory block. The critical care block, food court, and its exterior porch areas were designated as the triage site for COVID-19 screening for the PMH emergency department since March of 2020. Patients under investigation for COVID-19 infection are held in the exterior areas, and COVID-19 positive patients are admitted and transferred to either the Special Pathogens Unit, the Legacy Unit, or Doctors Hospital West. For several weeks now, the hospital has maintained that it has reached its capacity for COVID-19 positive admissions. This as it continues to see a daily intake of COVID-19 cases. As recently as Friday, July 23rd, Hospital Administrator Mary Lightbon Walker, in a Ministry of Health press conference, advised that there were 50 COVID-19 positive patients admitted, some 11 of whom were awaiting transfer from the emergency department for inpatient care. Hospital officials are in talks with international partners to expand the hospital's special care pathogen unit for the care of COVID-19 patients. The PHA and PMH has a very strict policy to protect patients and staff to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 virus. The capturing of photographs and videos of patients or staff without permission and incidents of verbal and or physical abuse will not be tolerated. The press statement continues. The public is reminded that the emergency department is only accepting emergency cases. In the event of a medical emergency, please call National Emergency Medical Services dispatchers at 919 or contact the PMH Emergency Department at 326-7014. Persons in need of care for non-medical emergencies should visit their doctor's office or community clinic. The Public Hospitals Authority and Princess Margaret Hospital salutes our hardworking and dedicated staff who continue to care for patients in the fight against this deadly pandemic. We thank the public for its ongoing support and compliance with COVID-19 prevention protocols at our public hospitals. The public is further advised from the Ministry of Health and Public Hospitals Authority regarding health and hospital services. Now, I believe I read somewhere that the hospital met capacity on Saturday past. I read that somewhere. It's a 100-bed capacity, and according to reports, hospital hit that capacity on Saturday. They described the current overcapacity at the Princess Margaret Hospital and the fatigue being felt by healthcare workers as a grim situation amidst another surge of COVID-19 cases. And on Saturday, health officials confirmed 62 new cases of COVID-19, taking the number of cases in the country at that time to 14,119, of which 1,455 are still active. So there are currently 100 hospital cases, 90 of which are moderately in it. During a Ministry of Health press conference on Friday past, we heard Dr. Pearl McMillan, who's the Chief Medical Officer, say that the country is in an upward trend with 49% increase in new cases over the previous week. And obviously, we are in another surge. And she said the unfortunate thing is that there is now COVID fatigue by all. Healthcare worker fatigue, and even some speak of compassionate fatigue. In our reality, there's a lot of fatigue. And when she talks about compassionate fatigue, I think there were 5 nurses who died last week, 5. The Chief Medical Officer noted that the increase in hospitalization shows a disturbing trend with a 100% increase in hospitalized cases since the end of June. Um, so the hospital is at capacity. And as I would have been saying, in another place, and the pandemic was declared a pandemic, and you knew it was only a matter of time before it got to the Bahamas, seeing that we are a nation that survives on people coming into our country. What I said back then, and it's obviously holding true for now, is that our hospital in the best of times is challenged. Talking about the Princess Margaret Hospital, in the best of times, is challenged. And so you know, if a pandemic hits, we're going to have some challenges, because in the very best of times, the hospital has its challenges. And so we see now where the hospital is being overrun. I read somewhere where it was said that this spike in cases came from independence gatherings, I believe is what they say, where Bahamians in large numbers got together over the weren't as cautious as they should have been, because as Dr. McMillan pointed out, there's COVID fatigue right now. Everybody's just tired. I know when this thing first hit, everybody, you were told you have to, every time you come inside, I think there was a lot of fear-mongering. Every time you come inside from outside, you got to take a shower. You got to wash down everything you get out of the food store. How many people still doing that? People tired. And this COVID fatigue has unfortunately led to a lot of people not being as cautious as they should be. On top of that, we have a very serious problem in that people aren't taking care of themselves physically. We have a very sick nation, and your immune system is key to all of this. And if your immune system is compromised and you have a non-communicable disease, and you are more susceptible to COVID, to become very ill from COVID. And the people who are dying, in the most part, are people who have other underlying conditions. They just can't handle it. And so we now face a situation where the hospital is overrun. And you have to ask the question as to whether or not more could have been done and should have been done to upgrade our hospital even before the pandemic hit. Because, as I've been saying all along, we were in trouble before the pandemic. Our hospital was very challenged. We've been hearing stories for the longest time about mold throughout the hospital. And when I saw that video, I said, well, geez, I see why. We've been hearing about mold in the maternity ward. And the only time it seems that something is done is when somebody decides to go public with it. Somebody sneaks in a camera or whatever and records something and then puts it on social media, and it goes viral. And then all of a sudden there's movement, which is unfortunate, because these problems, I'm sure, for that rain to be coming down the way it was in that video, that ain't no leak would just start last week. So clearly there's a problem of neglect when it comes to the upkeep of the hospital and ensuring that it is properly maintained, clearly. And that only goes in line with the government's approach overall to maintaining its public buildings. But clearly the hospital has been challenged even before now, and this is just added to the strain. And you have to ask the question whether or not sufficient was done prior to this to remedy that problem. Now, speaking of bringing things to the attention of the public, Maria Daxon, she decided to go to the hospital with her two nieces and record her complaint about the conditions of the hospital. And it didn't end too well for her. Now, the video was the whole live video was kind of long, so I didn't want to play it in its entirety. So I split it up into two. And in this first part of the video, you're going to see Maria. She's in the front of the main entrance to the hospital, and she is making it known that she's not happy with the Prime Minister, the competent authority, and the Minister of Health, and the general response to the challenges that are faced by the hospital. Let's go to clip number 1, please.
My fellow Bahamians, I got several calls. Come here now. Princess Barbados for her. Look over there. See my point, eh? I can deal with that building shortly. That they had several old persons in that building on the porch getting bite up with mosquitoes, and also what is going on, my fellow Bahamians? What else they did? It was raining. They could have catch the drive. And my fellow Bahamians, I want to tell the Bahamian people something. You're disturbing me, sir. I am on the government compound. You need to leave me alone when I'm talking. You cannot come to me. Go and call the police. Yeah, you can talk to me. Listen, my fellow Bahamians, I am paging the competent authority. I am paging Renwood Wells. Let me tell you all something. You all have the taxpayers' money. Dr. Menace, you in charge of finance. Dr. Menace, you in charge of land. And let me tell you something, Dr. Menace, you and Renwood Wells, I call it for judgment on y'all. For y'all to have them all people in that same porch right there, and they ain't get no screen and the traffic net, y'all look at the cost on Union in this place. And guess what, Renwood Wells? You, instead of you come deal with this issue to the hospital, what you doing? I get information from the officers that you was campaigning. You rather campaign before you come here and deal with this situation. I am sick and tired with Dr. Menace and Renwood Wells. You all have the taxpayers' money. Listen, Renwood Wells. Let me ask you something, Dr. Menace. All this land you have going on here, you have a problem allocating one land for a new hospital, but you want to give it to the foreigners and the white oligarchs, and you want to have land available for your cronies out west? I am calling on Dr. Menace and Renwood Wells. We need a new hospital. I don't want it on this compound. Give us a new hospital. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Dr. Menace and Renwood Wells. I got something to tell you all. The Bahamian people ain't gonna tolerate this at all. At all. Listen, I ain't stopping. Go. Don't tell me what I can't do on the taxpayers compound. I'm talking to Dr. Menace and Renwood Wells. Listen, I warned you all last year during this pandemic to give the Bahamian a temporary hospital with 100-bed hospital. I looking for that land. It ain't was gonna take on nothing much, you know, Dr. Menace. What they need you to do, Dr. Menace, give us the land and build us that hospital now. A temporary hospital, 100-bed. You got the poor Bahamian people, the old Bahamian people sleeping in this porch and in this molly hospital with pre-existing injury. Let me tell you something, Dr. Menace. Give us the materials. Let the Ministry of Works build this temporary hospital. Bring them, men them out of prison. They give us a hospital. Build this hospital. You knew from last year this pandemic was here. And you're doing a bunch of garbage. My fellow Bahamians. The Bahamian people are dying out in this hospital. You're short on medication. You're short on beds. Y'all who are paying these staff, you're short on everything in here. And guess what? Y'all do want to take the taxpayers' money and get these people in the hospital, this molly hospital. And I hear y'all take the people from off the porch and put them in this molly hospital.
Okay, so clearly Maria Dockson was very, very vocal in her expression of disdain with what we see happening at the hospital today. But it didn't end there. There's more. Now, before we show you the second part of the video, let me read one of your comments. This is from Carlene. Carlene says, was there any large gathering on Independence Day? Remember, only the vaccinated people were able to gather. Otherwise, non-vaccinated persons would have been fined. So one could possibly infer, I ain't no conk and my mama ain't raised no fool. Well, you know, that's what the legal position was, that only vaccinated people were allowed to gather. But I'm sure that that's not what happened. I'm sure that Bahamians gathered with their family and friends in their personal homes or whatever. That didn't stop people from gathering. Matter of fact, somebody just sent me yesterday, I think, a video of a gathering on Rose Island. A bunch of what do you call it? Jet skis, young people. I mean, a huge crowd, no masks. I'm not sure when that was captured, and that's why I'm not bringing it here per se. But if that was in recent times, then we see why we have a problem, because people ain't taking this thing seriously. They're not taking it seriously. So I have my own views as to what we can do to help stem this tide. And I've talked about it on the show quite a bit. That there are other to fight against this that are very effective, that are being ignored for whatever reason. But that's another show. One more comment, and then we're going to go to a quick break, and then I'll show you the second part of Maria's situation. This says, Christoph says, Maria Daxon has been a pit bull for the rights of Bahamians. She's relentless. I've watched her for a while. And Bertha says, they could have taken that same money they wasted on those igloos in Abaco and build that temporary hospital, because the igloos is leaking and it has mold. And not only that, Bertha, but they only build a handful of them. So where all that $2 million gone? And then they turn around and say, well, we don't know if we can build it anymore because that was only supposed to be a temporary solution. So somebody help me to understand this then. You spend $2 million. You build a handful. The handful what you build, leaking and molding more, because that was only supposed to be a temporary solution. So y'all getting the rest of our money back, eh? Things that make you go, Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to see the second part of that Maria Daxon one-woman protest. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
Executive Printers is your one-stop shop for all your branding and customization needs. Letterheads, envelopes, business cards, invoices, share and gift certificates, rubber stamps, vouchers, funeral programs, brochures, flyers, banners, and promotional items like mugs, water bottles, mouse pads, and key rings, all with personable service and great quality. No project is too small or too large. For great turnaround and competitive pricing, make an executive decision. Call us at 393-5011.
At Lee Air, safety is our number one priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting sugar-free berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Alive. Alive. Believe in best. And by Tropical Gyros. Not just good food, it's an experience. And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and we are talking health hazard today, the deteriorating condition at the Princess Margaret Hospital. So Maria Daxon decided to hold a one-woman protest. And she had her two nieces with her, recording as she protested. Now, as we saw in the first video, some folks came up to her and told her, "I'm sorry, miss, you can't be up here recording. You got to go to the bottom of the hill." She said, "You can't tell me where to go. This is a public space. You can't tell me I can't shoot up here." But then it escalated. Let's go to the next clip, please.
Go down the hill, please. That's it. You recording this thing? Mom, you cannot record that way.
Bambi?
Mom,
Chelsea,
turn
don't
the
you
camera
stop
down
it?
there. Turn the camera down
You
there.
can't touch your camera. Don't touch
You
her.
cannot record that way.
Excuse me, you can't touch her.
touch.
This is a public
I
dinner.
touch.
Don't touch her.
Turn the camera off.
No,
there.
don't touch
Mom,
her.
turn the camera
Don't
off.
touch. Bambi, you running this? Don't
Turn
touch
the
her.
camera off.
You cannot tell her what to think of.
Mom, turn it off, please.
Don't touch
Turn
her.
it
You will
off.
get sued. Don't you touch her.
All right.
Don't you touch her. Go call the police. And look here, don't tell me where I can't go. I can't go where. Listen to me. Listen to me. My fellow babies, I don't care.
Turn it off.
This is why what you doing? Oh, you guess what? Why you touch me? Don't touch me. You stupid. Touch me. Hold on. I got it.
No. You're recording the property. Take her off the property.
Don't blame me.
Calm down.
Bobby, roll up. Roll
Take her to the
it.
station. I come in there. Take her to
No,
the station.
excuse me. You touch my niece. You touch my niece. Don't
Recording, man.
Okay. It got physical. Whoever the gentleman was in the video, I'm assuming he's with security at the hospital. He went and it got physical. Where he was determined he was going to stop the recordings. I find this very, very disturbing because it's not like Miss Daxon was in the hospital recording patients. She was not in a vicinity where you could see any kind of private procedure happening. She was on the outside of the hospital. Yet she was accosted and arrested. The police showed up. And she said, this gentleman, accosted my niece because it was her niece, her two nieces who were recording. And the police arrested her. Lock her up. And this is just reflective of this Bahamas that we live in today. Because, I mean, maybe a lawyer, I know Maria's a lawyer, but maybe a lawyer could tell me what law she broke by being on the outside of the hospital recording what she thought was a message that needed to be heard by the Prime Minister, the competent authority, and the Minister of Health. And I've decided to call this show Health Hazard, the deteriorating conditions at PMH, because the conditions that are deteriorating aren't just the physical building. But there's deterioration. What do I mean by that? Well, conditions are so bad that they are now losing nurses in very large numbers who throw their hand up in there and say, forget this, I out of here, who are being wooed by other countries like the United States and Canada who know how to treat their healthcare professionals. So it's bad enough that those who decide to remain home have to work in an environment that is helping to keep them sick. Because, you know, I talked about how 5 nurses died last week. Let me tell you something. I have quite a few clients as a health coach who are nurses. And many of them themselves are sick. And I believe a part of the reason is because of the fact that they're being exposed to mold on a daily basis. But that's another show. But not only do every day, then they have to face the risk of the pandemic, the virus. You're in close proximity to people who are sick with the virus every day. But on top of that, you're being treated badly by the authorities, by the government. Why would you stay? So the deteriorating conditions are creating a real health hazard for all of us in this country. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, good morning, Michelle. How you doing?
Great. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad you showed that live of Maria Doxson. She's been fighting for the human rights, for poor people's rights for a while. She hasn't stopped yet. She mentioned something when she was released yesterday. Sorry, was it yesterday morning? Yes, it was yesterday morning when she was released. Either her or Lincoln Bain mentioned that of all of the areas, Prime Minister, you would think you would ensure that the PMH should have been in top shape, at least the nurses would have been appreciated and paid. I've seen the nurses. They've been up at Rawson Square protesting at least twice for last year alone. I think once last year and beginning part of this year, not being paid for their overtime and whatnot. They're underappreciated. The conditions, like you mentioned.
Don't forget how they treated the junior doctors. I mean, come on, man.
This is an embarrassment. Maria Doxson, this is the first, second, or third time she's been by PMH. So there is a big problem there with patients and with the medical staff, man. It's just, the irony is deafening because we have a doctor. There's no lawyers at the helm right now. That's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. It's really sad.
According on the grounds of the hospital.
I didn't think so.
The hospital also has surveillance cameras. They can record you while you can't record them, but at least with the outside. That's just 1 + 1 reasoning. I couldn't believe that she was arrested when her niece was attacked. I mean, he put his hands underneath.
And you could see it in the video. I mean, you see the video. The video speaks for itself.
And in front of the police, I mean, what is going on? Did they have specific orders to do this, that? Because Maria hasn't just started doing that. You know, it's been a problem for a while, and she's addressed it. You know, why? That's injustice, right? That's blatant injustice, right there. I don't care who you are, DNA, PLDF, whatever the case is. That's a violation of a citizen's rights. You know, that was deliberate. It seems like. You know, there's no excuse for that. There's absolutely no excuse for that.
You know, I'm reporting it around the world right now. There are massive demonstrations going on where people are finally saying enough is enough. It started in France. People have taken to the streets, and now we see this happening throughout Europe, where I was watching a video as I was preparing to come in today, and they were showing all of the countries across Europe where people have taken to the streets in the thousands to say enough is enough. Here in the Bahamas, we like one person to go speak on behalf of everybody else, and we sit back and just watch and say, gee, they wrong for that, eh? Look how they arrest Maria Dockson.
Yes,
you ain't willing to go out and say enough is enough.
It's amazing. You know, you're absolutely right, Michelle. It destroys. You know, we are so complacent in our attitude when it comes around to injustice, and it's not funny. It's not until we get our eyeball touched and then realize, man, shout out to Maria Dockson, man. You know, she's been fighting for poor babies for a long time, man. And you could say what you want to say, but she ain't eloquent and this and that. Believe me, that woman is very sharp. And I think that it's a calling to go and do that, you know, because you have to have a love for your fellow man, you know, and everybody's looking out for themselves only. You know, I gotta give Maria Dockson a shout out. You know, that right there the other day, that was very uncalled for. You know, and people laughed at it, but man, look here, you really see what's going on. You know, you understand how serious the situation really was. You know, Michelle, I wouldn't lie to you. You know, I wouldn't mind listening to if you were to bring on Maria or whatnot, and that would be I think a big wake up call for payments. Because unless I think people need to sit down and listen and see what's really going on around this place. Because once we have our bill, we don't know how our neighbors do, and that's everything. You know, Maria gets a lot of phone calls from a lot of folks reaching out, searching for help. Because as you well know, no one and the other colors are helping anyone out. They only helping out the rich. You know, so I think that would be a big wake up call for Bahamians if they were here from the horse's mouth. That's my recommendation would be, honestly.
All right.
I don't know if you feel how you feel about that, but I will highly recommend.
Thank you so much for letting me know how you feel. Thanks so much. All right. Have a good one. All right. So let me read a couple more comments. This one is from Jamila. Jamila says, the Rand in Freeport is still under repairs despite what they say. We are in hurricane season, and in Freeport, no fully functioning hospital, no shelters to speak of. Dorian is still here. Wow. Stacy says, that man is going to be in. Claudette says, wow, let the truth be told, it's too much crap going on at the hospital. Shame on the government. Shake my head. Jamila says, this is extremely disturbing, Bahamas. Gabriel says, Bahamas soon become a police state. Soon, watch and see. Bertha says, we need plenty more like Maria in this country. This is where we are at now. Believe it or not, we're going to have to fight to get this country back, especially this minister-led government. And Stacy says, this country has become a communist country under Dr. Minnis' leadership. It's frightening. We have another caller on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good morning, Lady Malcolm. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you today?
That's good. I'm fine, thanks. Just listening to your show. It was a great show as always.
Thank you.
And yeah, man, it's just very disturbing. You know, it's like ever since Dr. Mass here, it's like the country has become, into a state of dictatorship, and it's like the spirit has just spread, just throughout the island like wildfire. I saw the footage that you played with Lady Jackson and whatever have you. That gentleman had no right. He had no right to put his hands on Lady Jackson or her niece or whoever that was who was out there with her, and it's like our democracy right now, our democratic democracy right, our freedom of movement, freedom of speech, is under attack. Mm-hmm. When you have a prime minister who can go and give orders and say that you have to be vaccinated in order to campaign, are you kidding me right now? We are able to go to work and not be fully vaccinated. You understand? We are able to go in the food store. We are able to go out to a bar. We are able to go out to a restaurant. So why is there such strenuous stipulations to campaign? Where's the data that is the COVID-19 is being spread when you go and you campaign? Where's the data that shows that COVID-19 is spreading in church after they would have been in service for over an hour? Where is the data? You cannot continue to come to the Bahamian people and give these orders and have absolutely no data to support it.
But you can, because that's exactly what is happening, and the Bahamian people sitting there and taking it.
I mean, why? Why are y'all taking this? Why are we taking this? This is not something to take lightly. We need answers. We need the Prime Minister to be held accountable. He went on national television in an interview and he said that there are 2 pandemics, that the pandemic is over for those persons who are vaccinated. Then you had the personnel coming from the Ministry of Health, the doctor saying that that is in fact not the case. You understand? Mm-hmm. So when is he going to be held accountable? That is what everything that comes to your mind, come to your mouth and not be held accountable? Come on, man, Bahamians, you got to wake up and see what's going on. You understand? You cannot tell the church. And the church, I don't understand it. Like they have a muzzle, because I don't understand it. It's like they are under subjection. You understand? I thought the church was the ultimate authority, but obviously, I guess I was mistaken. You understand? You cannot tell the church. How could you tell the Spirit of God how to move? Now, I can understand that you may have some stipulations and say that the church, anyone, not just the church, but anyone at this time should be occupying, should be accommodating persons at a certain occupancy rate. Right. That's fair. I understand that. Yes. I understand that. If you say, well, the church and anyone, the bar, the church, the hotel or whatever, you understand? We're going to allow you to have 40% of persons that normally, so if you have a church that can normally fit 100 persons, we are now allowing you to have 50 in each sermon. Now, if you want to do multiples,
it's
okay, or whatever the percentage may be. Mm-hmm. If you want to have multiple services on Sunday to accommodate that occupancy rate, then it's on you. But then now put a stipulation and say only for an hour. Where's the data? Where's the data that shows that after being in church for over an hour, COVID-19 decides to spread? Come on.
Like it waits for the hour to pass before it starts passing.
Exactly. Nothing is wrong with you wanting to curb the spread and try to do your best you can do as a leader. Nothing is wrong with that. But then you have to make sense. You cannot just throw anything out there and expect sensible people. Now the other puppets, I can't speak for them, but I know sensible, intelligent persons like myself, we're not going to be able to digest that. We're just not going to be able to do that. You understand? Mm-hmm. So now he's coming to us on Wednesday. Oh, God have mercy. I just hope that he comes and he makes sense on Wednesday. I hope that he allows the people around him, because people keep saying, who's advising him? Who's advising? Listen to me. Anyone can advise you. But at the end of the day, if you're not open to taking the advice, if he's speaking to you, yeah, God's speaking to him. But the thing is not, is he listening? There's still, you understand? God is speak all he wants to. But if the person is not open, they're not listening, they have the spirit of Pharaoh, they have the spirit of Saul, then we're in big trouble. So I'm just hoping that on Wednesday he makes sense, and whatever stipulations he puts in, it actually makes sense. It's not going to be counterproductive. You understand? It's not going to do more harm than good. Okay, but Lady Malcolm, I'm sitting back and I'm listening. So
Thank you so
continue to
much.
have a good show.
Thank you so much for calling. I really appreciate
Okay.
it. With regard to this thing with the church, listen, I can't speak for all churches in this country. There are probably some who are not following any of the protocols, who are not social distancing or whatever. But I know my church, Bible Truth Ministries, listen, they take that so serious. The seating is spaced. It's a very large church, so it's a lot of space, right? But the seating is spaced so that you have clusters of 2 chairs for just a husband and wife or whatever. You have the individual chairs for persons who are worshiping them by themselves, all marked and spaced according to the restrictions. Whenever we have, if it's time for the collection, as opposed to passing the basket down the row, which is how we used to do it before the pandemic, no, it's at the front of the church. And one side of the church comes front, and you have to be within a certain distance before you. This thing is so organized. Between each person going to that podium, there's somebody who is spraying and wiping down between each person going to. So why are you gonna tell us you only could worship for an hour? What changes, or what did not happen within that hour? Well, it don't make no sense, like the last caller just said. It makes no sense, because if COVID could spread because of you not following the protocols, that's going to happen within the first hour. Connected COVID, and you are not following the protocols, that is going to happen within the first hour. You don't. The COVID ain't gonna say, okay, we got 5 more minutes before the hour up, and then we can go. Make this make sense. Ah, boy, this is just so tiring. But I dare say it ain't tiring enough, because Bahamian people still willing to sit back and take it. If you look at what is happening across Europe, they're like, no. This foolishness stopping here. Enough is enough. Because these leaders, it's like they have this agenda. Everybody on the same page as far as leadership is concerned. They all got the same narrative, the same agenda, and they keep pushing the envelope to see how far they could go with this communistic behavior. But we sitting back taking it. And anybody else who decides to stand up and say enough is enough, but you ain't willing to stand up. This, my people, is a problem. So let's get back to what we started to talk about. And that is the deteriorating conditions in our healthcare system. We have a caller on the line. Let's take the caller. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, Michelle. I've been listening to you. I thoroughly agree. I agree completely with the caller that just spoke earlier. We get too complacent. We don't identify our real enemy. It's even more identifiable right now. It seems as though the last time the Humans really rose up and wanted to do something was where they tried to lock the country down overnight.
And still then only a handful of people protested. Only a handful of people.
It's amazing, man. He'll have to go and kick down your door, get the food out of your fridge, take your clothes off your back, pick up a rock and put it with his legs. That's what he was at. You can identify who's making your life uncomfortable, who is causing you anguish on a daily basis, and then you have to have the balls to do something about it. Another thing, too, that we're lacking is unification. We have allowed just our system we're accustomed to, going back and forth with two parties, to divide us, be jealous of, cannot trust one another. It's too much to even talk about. You know, but all I know is one fact for sure: we are divided as Bahamian people. It never used to be like that. It never used to be like that. We had the time frame of, say, the Burma Road riot, when Bahamians knew who the enemy were, and they had the balls to do something about it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the model who's the enemy. This can't go on much longer than this, Michelle. It can't. For some people, it feels like 2020 all over again right now in the month of July. You know, I have friends, acquaintances who call me, ask me to borrow money on a regular basis. It feels like last year almost. You see, there's no way this could continue, man. Like the caller mentioned before, it's all about the vaccine. According to the numbers, we're at 15%, a shade over 15% that have been vaccinated. Okay, when the numbers from the Prime Minister's office dictate otherwise, a higher number. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
What I find interesting is that 50% of the doctors and nurses have not been vaccinated.
I think it's more than that, actually. According to my sources, it's more than that. As I understand, it's the doctors and nurses, the more senior staff, the ones that are in their late 40s. The younger staff, they haven't thought about taking that vaccine. You know, they haven't thought about it. I'm looking at the deaths, the people who have succumbed allegedly to COVID-19, and I'm wondering how many of those are vaccinated. I'm wondering how many of those people were vaccinated. How many of those people live and sleep next to people who are fully vaccinated?
Yeah.
Those are the questions that are itching in the back of my brain.
Yeah. The thing is, we all know that if you're fully vaccinated, that doesn't stop you from passing the virus on. And I thought it was so irresponsible of the competent authority to say the pandemic is over for the unvaccinated, knowing that they can continue to spread the virus. So you bring up a very good point. Are the people who have succumbed to this or who are very ill, were they in the vicinity of someone who has been fully vaccinated and passed it on? We don't know, because the statistics, the data is not being provided to us, so we have no idea. And I think it is very irresponsible for us not to be testing people who have been vaccinated, because we know that they can pass this thing on, and for us to continue to ignore that and pretend that that's not a reality is very, very irresponsible, I think. I'm just flabbergasted, because as I have repeatedly said, there are other methods that have proven to be effective that are being suppressed and ignored. Ivermectin, for one. And my thing is,
hydroxychloroquine.
Well, there's some who say hydroxychloroquine is not as effective as they say it is, but ivermectin, they cannot dispute. They cannot dispute how effective ivermectin is. They can't. So the question is, if we are at a critical state at the hospital now, which we are, this is critical. And when Dr. Pinder comes on, she's going to tell us exactly how bad it is. If we are at this critical state, why are we not willing to try other things that have proven to be effective? Main interest is caring for the people, avoiding deaths. Why are you not willing to try something else?
It's very simple, Michelle, when you really think about it. When it comes around to local press, and they grill him trying to get information just for the public, that's the press job. He is insulting. He acts like he's daddy and they're the kids. Cuts them off. I mean, he acts like a prick. All right? So if he doesn't want to answer simple, pertinent questions, I mean, you really think he cares about people and their needs? I mean, there's a difference between being irresponsible and then being deliberate. Okay? And this goes far, far, far over the line of irresponsibility. Okay? This is obviously deliberate. So when it comes to people alone, it tells you gives you a rough drop as to his perception for payments, whatever class. Now, I can't say that because he loves the rich. But the fact of the matter is that this is deliberate. He has no, for a doctor, he has no bedside manner. You know, and what gets me, I'll say this jokingly, but I'm serious. I know about 4 gynecologists, and all those guys, they're so cool, man. They get the best bedside manner. You know, that's crazy. I mean, honestly, this is like a soap opera slash nightmare. Because I didn't see this one coming. I didn't see this one coming.
It's crazy.
You know, Michelle, like that. Because I mean, I think about it, I'm having a good day. Just thinking about our situation right now, it gets to the breast sometimes, man.
Yeah.
It really does. Anyway, I go on, Michelle.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. We heard the Minister of Health, Renwood Wells, say during the recent press conference that we're losing nurses and that they're going to do what they need to do to make it more attractive for nurses to stay at home. I find that very interesting, considering that this is the very administration who's been treating our healthcare professionals with disdain. But let's go to that final clip, and then we'll take a break before my guest comes on at 12:15. Let's go to clip number 4 with Dr. Wells, please.
Seeks to do everything within its power to seek to retain our healthcare workers, our professionals in every sphere and in every sector. We are looking as to how we can seek to keep not just the nurses but the doctors here at home. You know, this administration has been seeking to incentivize our folk in many ways. We are looking at giving, well, not looking at, we will be giving an honorarium very, 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 very soon to those who have been on the front lines. We have a death benefit for those who would have passed away in the course of battling this menace of COVID-19. And I think the general public, the healthcare sector can stay tuned as we deliberate and commiserate as a cabinet on what we can do to retain our people here in country.
This is almost laughable. That now, this is when you all are going to have this conversation. Now, in the midst of a pandemic, you don't treat our healthcare professionals with disdain. The conditions in the hospital are falling apart. You don't want to pay what you owe to people. You treat the young doctors, the junior doctors, like them going to school and getting their qualifications and coming back to try to help their country is nothing. The only reason you turn back to them is when the pandemic broke out and you realize, okay, we need help because your doctors were being burnt out. So you now go back to the very same junior doctors who you treated like crap in the first place. And now you come and you say, oh, we're now going to sit around cabinet to determine what we can do to retain our nurses. How about you treat them better? How about you fix the hospital? How about you pay them what they're worth? How about that? How about that should have been done a long time ago? And it shouldn't have come to the place now where it's a critical situation for you to determine that it's time for you to sit down and discuss what needs to be done for these people. This is absolute money. I understand that nurses who decide to move to the United States are offered a house. They making sure they straight because they realize they need them and they're willing to treat them well. And quite frankly, if I was a young nurse with no ties here, you always can see my back long time. Stay here for what? to be disrespected, to have to work in a moldy environment that will make you sick, to have to deal with, y'all ain't serious, man. I happy they finally decide to have this conversation. My only thing is, it's a little bit late, y'all. That's a conversation that should have already been had. And I dare say, if that video with the rain coming down didn't go about this. You hear people complaining from time to time, but that's it. You have to you gotta embarrass them for them to respond. There's something wrong with that. Something is seriously wrong with that. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will hear from Dr. Sabriquet Pinder Butler on the front lines, telling us what is really going on with the conditions at the Princess Margaret Hospital. I'm calling this show today Health Hazard, the deteriorating conditions in our healthcare system. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
One of the things I love about the mailboat is their relationship with Bahamas Air. I can earn travel points on my international freight and redeem them when I fly.
For me, online shopping is easy, with Mailboat's U.S. addresses and regular freight delivery to Nassau. Plus, I can always prepay customs and freight, and they always notify me when my package arrives.
Yeah, a lot of people think the Mailboat is just for shipping, but they also offer a safe and secure storage facility at affordable rates, all in a central, convenient location.
We also offer passenger service into Freeport multiple times per week with a seating capacity of over 450 persons.
With family movies on large screens, one hot meal included, and on-board lounge for snacks and soft drinks.
We're the Mailboat. We're bridging people, products, and places.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients. so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. And by BMP Liquidators. High-quality furniture and home goods at very reasonable prices. And welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. Today's show I'm calling Health Hazard, the Deteriorating Conditions at the PMH. And my guest is now here. She's joining us via StreamYard. And I would like to welcome Dr. Sabriquet Pinder Butler. She's the Consultant Physician Staff Association President. Dr. Butler, welcome to GPS. This is your first time on the... Can you hear us okay? Can you hear me okay? Okay, now for some reason I can't hear you. So I'm not sure. Okay, I need you to sign out and then sign back in, and let's see if that fixes the problem, Dr. Pinder. Okay, she said okay. All right, so let's hope that she will be able to get back on as quickly as possible. In the meantime, let's read a couple of your comments as we wait for her to come back on. So Kevin says, if the government was taking COVID so seriously, they stop everything except campaigning. If the election ain't till next year, why don't you suspend campaigning for a couple of months? Then I would take the government seriously. Jamila says, divide and rule is their only plan. Princess says, the doctors and nurses know what they are dealing with. I guess you meant all. They should not be mandated to take an experimental mRNA gene therapy jab within liability. What medication are they using at the hospital to combat COVID-19? Let's see. Maxine says, what about the innocent sick patients that went into hospital without COVID and ended up contracting COVID through no fault of theirs and ended up dying? Yes, Maxine, good point. What about compensating their families? Tracy says, Michelle, a promise is a comfort to a fool. Not only should they be treated better, supplies needed by staff need to also be provided. All of this is a part of better treatment. Okay, Dr. Pinder Butler is back on. Let's see if we can hear you now. Okay, we still can't hear you. Do you have any earphones, earplugs that you can put in? Let's see if that makes a difference. So let's try that. Yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear? Okay, she's definitely ahead.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you now. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing well. How are you today? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for saying yes. I really appreciate this, especially seeing that this is, was a very late request because I only just decided to do this show over the weekend. You are on the front lines. You, the doctors, the nurses know front and center exactly how bad it is in the hospital. And we've been hearing that it's bad, but it wasn't until I think that video went viral with the leaking situation, the rain coming down, and people, being out there in the hallway that people realize, oh my God, this is serious. How bad is it there?
So, yes, things are not in a good state. I think, unfortunately, although we've been trying to alert the Bahamian population of the situation with the COVID surge and with the increasing cases coming into hospital, that inevitably we may have reached this point where the healthcare system is beyond capacity. I think we are now seeing what we hoped we would not have seen. And it's not good. It's not good for the staff, the physicians, the nurses, all levels of staff, the cleaners, everyone that's a part of our team. It's not good for the patients. Certainly, when we have a house that's overfilled, and we having challenges with the being able to put persons in specific areas, and not just being able to put them in specific areas, but having the staff to actually provide the care for these patients is really probably our biggest issue right now. And I think that was also why, from what might have been shared on social media, some of those things with, timeliness with being able to provide care, perhaps not being able to put patients in proper areas due to, the restrictions that we have with not having adequate staff to provide the care that's needed for our Bahamian population. So it is really not a good time for us as healthcare workers. It's not a good time for us as Bahamians in the country. All of these persons have been working very hard from the start of the pandemic to now. Everyone is having COVID fatigue because we're having staff issues as well and shortages. We're not able to provide the relief that we should for persons working in the hospital and in other areas right now. And that's really, really putting a strain on the healthcare system.
Mm-hmm. And why is that? Why is there such a bad shortage? Was engaged. I know we've been hearing about losing nurses to the United States and Canada, but why is there such a big shortage?
I think part of the problem, we made some recommendations from last year because we have had staffing challenges from before COVID. And oftentimes when we even have hurricanes like Dorian, it bears it out even more because oftentimes we have to redistribute staff to help on other islands. So even when we had the hurricane, we redistributed staff on Grand Bahama because Grand Bahama also has significant staffing issues as well. And so oftentimes what happens is even though we replenish and get additional staff per year, we're still not getting sufficient to properly distribute throughout our healthcare institutions. And so that as the backdrop, combined with the fact that when we have a pandemic, and oftentimes we keep reiterating what you see in the community is what you're also going to see with healthcare workers being impacted as well, because we are a part of the community. And that also impacts what happens with closures of wards, et cetera, which has also happened during this time. And unfortunately, we have not replenished our staffing. So we've asked for additional staff to help during this time. We've lost staff. As unbelievable as that might sound during this time, we've had persons whose contracts were not renewed. We recently had some of our physicians as well, our senior house officers who are not working at this time, over 20 of them who are at home waiting to see if they will work. We're waiting on our interns to come. And I think we've talked about interns being hired as well every year. And again, we're at the same place where we're waiting for interns to come in, but the ones that were serving in that role have gone home. And so we knew that this would come up. We've been asking the administrators, what's happening with the hiring. If we're having challenges with hiring people permanently, let's look outside. Let's work outside the box. Let's have sessionals. Let's see how we could redirect funds from elsewhere for health, because we're in a crisis. This is not an everyday situation. This is a crisis of health in the Bahamas. And if we don't address it, everything else will collapse. And so I don't know if the funding was not redirected. I think oftentimes we were just told that there's no funds. But I think in the country, we have to prioritize what is important. And if it is that our population can't get the help that is needed, I mean, what are we going to do? Are the physicians all going to be burnt out and we don't have sufficient care for the patients? Are the patients going to come and not get the care that is needed? We are really in a serious state. So we need the government to really look at how they're going to be able to provide funding to hire those persons, because we need people on the floor more so than now.
So I just want to make sure I heard you right. There are at least 20 doctors sitting at home right now that could be used that aren't being used. Is that what you said?
That
Yes?
is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct.
Wow. And you were being told that the reason why, it may be a financial situation, we just don't have the money to do this. Well, I can, off the top of my head, think of at least $4 million that could have been redirected. $2 million being spent on sidewalks.
Yes.
Like, it's important for you to be able to walk on a sidewalk in the midst of a pandemic. That's $2 million right there. And then I think about the money that was spent on the igloos. A handful of igloos built. You now telling me that we may not build the rest because that was only supposed to be a temporary solution. And so where the rest of that money gone? That can't pay some doctors in the midst of a pandemic?
A pandemic. A pandemic.
Sense. This is ludicrous.
It's not making sense. It's not making sense.
Let me ask you.
It is absolutely not making sense.
Moved for doctors to use to try to treat these patients. It's bad enough that you have a shortage of doctors. It's bad enough that you have 20-something doctors sitting home while those of you who are at work are being burnt out because of this surge. What is there a limitation on what methodologies you can use to treat patients with?
Can you repeat that for me, Michelle? I had a break.
Is there a limitation? Are you being limited to treatment methodologies? In other words, do you have an approved method that you are being told you cannot go beyond this method to try something else to try to minimize the what's the word I'm looking for? To try to minimize the pressure on y'all to get some of these people well enough to go home. Are you being limited by the treatment methodologies that you're using?
I don't know that I would say that we are being limited by the treatment methodologies, because the physicians who are in charge of the services that provide the methodology and the treatment protocols, et cetera, have outlined these from, since we've been dealing with the pandemic. So that has not necessarily been our challenge. Our challenge has been spacing. Our challenge has been staffing, especially now. That's our biggest issue. And recently we had issues with being able to provide other services in the hospital, like lab services were put on pause. There was an announcement related to that. So we weren't able to offer certain things to patients. We've had to have certain specialty clinics closed. Elective surgeries and other procedures are also on hold because we just don't have the nursing support that we need. We don't have the physician support that is needed. And we're having so many cases of persons coming with COVID now. We're having large numbers. And so when that happens, remember now the hospital is providing care for other patients who don't have COVID. They have other emergencies, other chronic conditions that require them to be seen. And so you're trying to also provide a safe enough environment for those persons who are there and the staff members at all levels that are also interacting and engaging with these patients.
Mm-hmm. Have you had the ear of the competent authority and or the Minister of Health to your satisfaction? When I say you, I'm talking about your association.
Unfortunately, we have not. It has been something that we have been struggling with from last year. We had an earlier meeting several months ago, and we continue to write, asking for meetings, asking for the recommendations that we would have made in the past. We continue to resubmit them. We continue to provide these same innovative ways that we're talking about now, because we see what will happen if certain things aren't put in place, right? And so, it's oftentimes disappointing when you see a press conference and you hear things such as, well, we have enough space, we have enough bed capacity, but we're not looking at the whole picture. You can have that, but if you don't have the staff, it's like going into a restaurant that has space and has food, but no one to serve you. So you will never get it. And so, if you don't have the staff to provide the care, I mean, what you're having a hospital, but you don't have doctors and nurses to take care of the people. So you can have a nice big tower, a new tower, and still don't have the persons that are needed to provide the care. So at the end of the day, are you really running a proper healthcare institution? Are you providing the standard of care that's needed for your population? And unfortunately, we have not been engaged. We hate to even have to have these discussions outside of where they should be. We should be at a level where we're all professionals. The physicians have trained, the nursing staff have trained. You're talking about professionals that you leave the care of the healthcare in. So why would you not properly engage us so that we can move forward? We want the best for our people. That's why we serve. That's why we train. That's why we come back home. That's why we continue to get this message out. And so it's really, really disheartening.
Wow. It's disheartening just listening to you describe this situation, to be quite frank. If you're not going to listen to the professionals in the midst of a pandemic, when will you? What are some of the recommendations that were put forward that you think could make a big difference that are being ignored?
I think the first recommendation, in light of what we're dealing with right now, in speaking with our members, has to do with the staffing. As healthcare providers, we knew and we have come to terms with what we've been dealing with the pandemic. And so we work together as best as we can to reallocate our staff, to support each other. Some of our members are beyond fatigue. They've been impacted. We've lost nursing staff who are part of our team. So everybody is working tirelessly. We don't want them to work and be so fatigued as well that they also become ill. And we haven't been able to provide any sort of relief for them, mental or otherwise. But we continue to do our best. But right now, it's really at the breaking point where we really need you to understand that we need the help. We need you to find a way to get the persons in the hospital to help the physicians and the nurses. The second thing that we also, keep talking about is looking at seriously stressing the education in this country related to those preventative measures that have been shown to work, regardless of whether or not we have vaccines or not. We need to wear a mask, we need to sanitize or wash our hands, and we have to social distance. They cannot be overlooked. And that every time we talk about this pandemic, that's the first thing we need to continue to remind everybody of. Testing is of utmost importance. We have been recommending testing from the inception of COVID. We cannot afford to open up our economy, which we've done, and not have testing of all persons coming into the Bahamas. We weren't able to booster our surveillance and contact tracing units as we should have, because certainly when more persons are coming into the country, you need to also be able to booster that up. And we haven't done that either. So we're lacking in those areas that are needed to happen when you're talking about opening up a country, when you know that there are other variants that are much more transmissible than what we saw in this instance. And so, those recommendations have been things that we have been talking about from last year. And we continue to make those recommendations.
There's something too that I didn't hear you say, and this is one of my pet peeves when it comes to this pandemic. We, albeit limited, we have said you have to social distance, you have to wear a mask, you have to wash your hands, and you just made the point that there has to be a better effort to educate the people about that. So you could argue that there has been limited education, right? But at least they have said that. But here's a big part of a problem that I have with this whole thing. There's another missing link that we don't seem to be willing to pay attention to, because those measures, distancing, washing of hands, wearing a mask, they avoid contact, but they do not help the patient in terms of what happens to your body if you do get COVID. And here's what I'm trying to say. Key to this is your immune system.
Well, absolutely.
And we're not hearing this. I don't understand why this is being ignored. Why?
I think
social distancing, washing your hands. Why are we not hearing this?
Yeah. So absolutely,
I'm
we all have to take care. We all have to take care of our health. We talk about persons making sure that you take care of your general health. You boost yourself up with vitamins. You try to make sure that your immune system is as strong as it can be. And this is obviously with any virus, but certainly with one like this, where we're still not aware of all of the things. It's new, so we're still trying different things. So absolutely important, Michelle, that we continue to encourage persons to take care of their general health, to make sure they take their multivitamins, the vitamin C. We know that some other studies have supported the use of vitamin D and zinc, and those things are still all very helpful as well. So those things should absolutely also be encouraged as we promote the way for us to try to mitigate and to fight this COVID pandemic.
Let's talk about testing. Reading articles over the past day or so about the recall of I forget the company that created the PCR test, and now they're saying that the PCR test is by this particular company is the class 1 recall because it was giving false readings. We're not doing adequate, I believe, testing throughout the country. And for those of you, like I just traveled the other day, and the money that I spent on testing was almost as much as the plane ticket. And so clearly this is not something that the general public, many people can't afford. We're not doing any more contact tracing to the degree that we were said to be doing in the beginning. We're pushing for vaccination, knowing that persons who are vaccinated can still transmit the virus. So I dare say we're creating the perfect storm. And on top of that, not adequate testing from vaccinated persons. Now we're hearing we don't have sufficient doctors and nurses on the front lines working, so they're getting burnt out. And if they get burnt out, as you so eloquently pointed out, that raises now the possibility of their health being at risk, even more so than just being at risk from being exposed to COVID. Because now you're talking about the stress of fatigue and what that does to the body. Are we creating the perfect storm for an all-out collapse of our healthcare system? And if so, what does that look like?
That is a very good question, and one that should have all of us in this country very concerned, I think, especially at this moment, because when we see what is happening in the Bahamas and in other countries across the globe, we know how things can change very quickly. And certainly if you don't have the healthcare resources, what it would mean fallouts. Persons will not be able to get care. The cases will continue to rise, because even now with certain restrictions, the cases are what they are. So we're going to continue to see increased cases until things potentially may be able to settle down. They are going to be that. And, one of the things that we never wanted as healthcare professionals was the collapse of our healthcare institution, which is why from day one, I don't think we've talked so much as we've been doing now, right? We've not been on as much platforms because we really want to take care of the patients as best as we can. But we make time to do this because we know what will happen if we don't put the things in place. They all have to come together. The testing has to go along with us having the preventative measures, along with us taking care of ourselves. All of that has to go hand in hand. If they're not working together, regardless, there's still going to be a gap. And once that gap happens, unfortunately, then, all hell breaks loose. And I feel that at this time, with what we're experiencing in our healthcare institution, we are at that point. I know the administrators said, I think last week or week before, that we're beyond capacity. If you're beyond capacity, then the ship can go down at any time. If you don't get that back up, it's going to go down. And that's never something that we want to happen in the Bahamas or anywhere else for that matter. But we know that if you open up the economy and we're not doing the things that we need to do as citizens and as a people, and we're not following what's happening, because oftentimes I have people ask me, are we still having a pandemic are we still having COVID in the Bahamas? And I'm surprised that people are actually asking that. What do you mean if COVID is happening? Are we really seeing all those ill patients at the hospital, whether it's from COVID or elsewhere? And I'm surprised that people are asking that, because I feel that, and maybe it's just me, I feel like maybe I'm talking about it so much and so many other media persons are talking about it so much. So how come people aren't really understanding the scary state beyond critical now? Because I need everybody to really understand this, the scary state that we're in. We heard about places where the ambulance can bring people, but there's nowhere to let them go. We heard about places where there's not enough oxygen. We've been talking about that. So did we want that to be us? No. But if we continue, that will be us. And that's where we're at. We're at that tip. We don't have sufficient staff to care for persons. A lot of things are happening. So we really, really have to see this for what it is at the governmental level. It's not business as usual. It's not another kumbaya, let's hold hands, let's hug, let's pray that this passes and don't do the things that we need to do. We have to do what is necessary, because we are going to break.
I remember when Italy was going through that massive wave. I think it was last year sometime. I don't remember exactly. And they were their doctors and nurses and citizens. And they were talking about being at the stage where doctors had to make the decision as to who lived and who died. Because they were so overwhelmed, they couldn't treat everybody. So they would look at one patient and say, well, their chances of survival are slim, so just let them go. That other person has more of a chance of survival, so let's work on them. Are we there yet, or are we close to that?
I think we are very, very, very close to that. If we're over capacity, and we can't take people, inadvertently, we may be there even in some instances. If we can't provide the care that is needed, we may inadvertently be there, because, a lot of times there are things too that are time sensitive. We all know that if someone is choking, for example, and we can get to help them within a few minutes, we can save a life. But if someone is there choking and we don't have anyone to help them, then we're going to lose a life. And it's the same thing if patients come to a healthcare institution and no one is there to help them. If all of the ambulances are out from picking up and they can't get to you, we know sometimes those things, we can't get there to save you. And so I think we are there.
Wow. Okay, so you've already said what you would like the government agencies to do. What do you want the people of the Bahamas to understand and do? How can we play our part to minimize this burden on y'all?
Right now, I think the first thing is for us to our Bahamian people, we know that this seems like probably a long road. I think most of us are tired of COVID. I hear it every day, but it is our reality. It is what we're still fighting through and pressing through. And we want to make sure that all of us are here beyond COVID to live our lives and to build a Commonwealth of the Bahamas. However, to do that, we have to all play our part. Let's try to take care of ourselves as best as possible. Let's take care of our general health. If you have chronic health conditions, please ensure that you're taking care of yourself. This is not the time to get sick at all with anything. That's not the time. The hospitals, the clinics everywhere are full. It's just not the time. Please take care of yourselves. Please follow the preventative measures. Wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance. For those persons who are ready to take the vaccine when they become available and you wish to avail yourself, the vaccines have been shown to prevent severe illness as well as death. So please avail yourself to the vaccination and just continue to watch over each other. We have to also watch over each other and remember that the choices we make also impact the next person. So I think they are the main things that we really, really want to impress upon you now. We want to try to make sure everyone is safe. And we want to do our best as healthcare providers to provide the best healthcare that we can to you during this time.
What are your views? I want to read a comment. It says, are we using ivermectin in the Bahamas, and what is the prescribed treatment for COVID? The people need to know, please. Can you respond to that?
As far as I'm aware, I'm not a part of the national team that deals with the protocol for hospitalization, but I'm not aware that ivermectin is being widely used in the Bahamas. I think persons who may be using it are not using it as part of the COVID.
Your internet is dropping in and out. So I'm going to need you to repeat what you just said because we didn't hear most of it.
Did we drop?
We're back now. So I need you to repeat what you said because we didn't.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. So as far as I'm aware, ivermectin is not being widely used in the Bahamas as a part of the COVID protocol. I'm not a part of that particular unit, but to my knowledge, ivermectin is not being used. I think they're still looking at data related to that. I think there are persons who perhaps may be using ivermectin and some other medications to treat patients. For the most part, oxygen, fluids, treating whether or not persons have specific complications like pneumonias, specifically for what is shown, those things are being used as a part of the treatment protocol, along with vitamin C, along with perhaps some zinc supplements, etc. Those are the mainstay of what I'm aware of at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. I really do hope that we go beyond just I know of private physicians here in the Bahamas who have been using ivermectin for COVID patients and have had wonderful success. And my thinking is that if we are at the breaking point, which we clearly are, then I believe we need to examine all avenues as to how to lessen the pressure in terms of doing everything that you have spoken about today. Obviously, while the rest of y'all are being burnt out, I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. And it cannot be where you can tell me that the only reason is money, because you could find money to spend on foolishness. You could find money to pay our doctors and nurses so that we can help to relieve some of the stress. I think that's just absolutely ludicrous. I also believe, though, that there are other methodologies like ivermectin that perhaps should be considered to be included in the national arsenal. At least give it a try and see how it works. It's been working, like I said, very well for private doctors who have used it to help with their private patients. And so I just, I have to wonder, why is it that we're not doing, and when I say we're not, I'm not talking about you, the doctors and nurses who are on the front line, who are giving your absolute best and giving your all. And I publicly want to say thank you to you and your colleagues for putting your lives on the line every day, going into that hospital tired, run down, overworked, and still giving us your all. On behalf of, say thank you for the work that you're doing, because God help us all if if you guys weren't there, then what? And this is why this is so very scary to hear, because if y'all are being burnt out to the point where you're becoming ill. I mean, 5 nurses lost last week. 5. That has to be that has to put a dent on an already strained system. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. I just don't know, though. I don't understand why it is that we are not looking to incorporate every possible thing that we can to try to lessen the strain. That is a pet peeve for me. What's next?
I think there's certain things, and so we're here to serve, Michelle, and so we appreciate what you've said. I also want to thank all of the physicians, all of the nurses, all of the cleaners, the security, everybody who's been a part of the administrative staff, who's been a part of this in health, because it has been very difficult. The morale low. We try to encourage each other as much as possible. Burnt out, I think we're beyond being burnt out. And so, we have to encourage each other through this. We see our colleagues lose their lives. We see our colleagues become ill. It's scary for all of us on a daily basis, but we try to push through to try to continue to help the Bahamian people. And I think too, even as a people and as a government and as professionals, we have to continue to encourage each other to communicate and to respect other views, other opinions, look at what, other things that might be helpful. As you mentioned in the armamentarium, look at the research, proper dialogue. Even with the things that we're using now, all of those things had to be studied. Do we need to do our own testing among Bahamians and see what works for us? All of those things are important, but we have to be able to collaborate better. And I think that's something that's killing us too in the Bahamas in general. We don't collaborate better. We don't communicate as well as we should as a people. And so I'm hoping that we learn this too through this pandemic. We need to communicate, respect each other's views, respect each other's opinions. And you don't have to agree on everything, but at least you should be able to have proper discourse. I can learn from you. You can learn from me. What I don't know, we look up, and then we come and we find a balance, and that's what we really need. We all want to save our people. We're here for all of us. This is our country. And at the end of the day, we really have to impress this, because we're a part of those people we can become the patient today. Our family members are the patients as well. So this isn't just about us talking to everyone else. We're also talking to ourselves. And it's beyond that. And so we thank the Bahamian public too, because we know it's been a hard time, and we know that you're also in some instances not experiencing the care that we would like to provide to the highest standard because of our challenges. And so we need to fix this.
Mm-hmm. I have a question from Jamila. Jamila says, how are the current treatment protocols working? What is the survival rate, and how does it affect the ability for the country to reach herd immunity? Are you concerned that with vaccine hesitancy as it is, with the Bahamas only being a little over 15% vaccinated, there is obviously a high degree of vaccine hesitancy. Are you afraid that we will have a difficult time reaching herd immunity and thereby get back to some sense of normalcy?
I think that we have always, as a country in general, had challenges with persons wanting to take vaccines. It's not new. Unfortunately, yes, we're in a pandemic. So, some would say maybe we expect more people to want to get the vaccine sooner. We have to also appreciate that the concerns and the queries are adequate that people have. They're fair questions. They're fair concern. We know that this is new for everyone. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. Yeah, because you did drop out there for a second.
Okay.
I can
So
hear you now. Yes.
yeah, we're hoping, because the reality is we've only been even doing vaccines in the country for several months ourselves, hoping that seeing with how the vaccines have worked in other countries and how they've helped, that will actually encourage more of us to want to take the vaccines and to help in that regard. Certainly, we know if we would have to have a significant number, perhaps, for herd immunity to occur. That's the reality. What that percentage is, I think that the experts are still looking at that as well, because unfortunately we're seeing in other countries with high vaccination rates as well, that some of them are also having breakthrough COVID cases, etc. And that's why I think it can't just be vaccination alone, obviously. And that has to also be the message. It can't just be vaccination. It has to be a combination of things. And we have to see it as a pandemic that all of us are a part of, so that we fully understand that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there are several countries right now that are facing new surges in the virus. And these are countries that most of the population has been fully vaccinated. So it cannot be where the vaccine is your only hope to get us out of this mess.
No.
And then there are other countries like South Africa that saw a huge drop in COVID-19 cases without vaccination in any large degree. And so I really do believe that we have been, when I say we, I'm talking about, us as a nation, us as a world, really. We've been missing the boat as it comes to how to solve this crisis. Dr. Gerd van den Bosch is of the view that it was a mistake to widespread widespread vaccinations during a pandemic, because stormed the perfect environment for the virus to mutate. And his prediction was that the more you vaccinate during a pandemic, the more you will see mutations of the virus. And it seems now, he's been sounding this alarm for months, and it seems now that he may have been correct, because every time you turn around, you hear of another variant. So what is, from where you sit, knowing all that you know, what's next? What would you advise, apart from the obvious in terms of distancing, taking better care of your health? What would you like to see happen that all of us can do to bring this to a close?
Wow. I think at this particular time, I think our best options at this particular moment, because again, as you say, we're all still watching what's happening with vaccinations and everything else across the globe. And certainly other countries who have done very well have done just that. They have used a combination of things. They have been succinct with testing. They've been succinct with, quickly identifying cases, quarantine. They have been continuing to talk about social distancing and all of those other preventative measures. So it has to be a combined effort of these things, not one and without the other, or us, not continuing to encourage our persons that we are still in a pandemic. Because I think sometimes either the fatigue or what we're seeing on the media with us reopening and, just having a good time, etc. I think sometimes too, it causes us to put our guard down. And right now we can't afford to drop our guards. I understand that it's easy for us to do that, but I just want to encourage all of us to try our best to hang in there so that we can fight through this pandemic. Help your families, help your neighbors, continue to eat healthy, take care of your body, exercise, take any medications that you're supposed to be taking for your pressure, your diabetes, all of those things, because they also potentially increase your risk for, having more severe illness. And so I think, again, main things I cannot stress as much would be the preventative measures, Michelle. Social distancing, watch for the gatherings, wearing your mask, regardless of who you're around. All of those things, I think we still need to do them and continue to do our best to safeguard each other during this time. Mental health is also extremely important. A lot of people are overwhelmed. Check on your neighbors, check on your friends, make sure they're doing okay, your family members. Pray. We're a praying nation. We have to ask God for direction. We have to pray for our leaders and ask God to help them and give them the wisdom and understanding, because it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy, especially during this time. So pray for them. They're not always going to get the right answers, but I think at the end of the day, we have to continue to, if we have to nudge them, let's nudge them, but we have to do those things.
Doctor, thank you so much for taking some time from what I know is a busy schedule to talk to us today. Listen, I am going to be praying for you guys that the Lord will strengthen you and that he will open the ears of the authorities to listen to you, because we can't afford to get this wrong. We cannot afford to get this wrong. So again, thank you so much for all that you all are doing, and our prayers are with you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and God bless you as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, guys, that's our time. It's 1:00. We got to get out of here. Thank you so much for being here, Doctor, for giving us those words. And man, we got to get this. We got to get this right, y'all. We don't have a choice but to get this right. Let us all do our part, please, people. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you guys right here, same station, same time tomorrow for another eye-opening, informative edition of GPS. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
The thoughts, views, and comments expressed on this